So every time I upload a video, YouTube asks me if the video is safe for kids. And that got me thinking, I should be thinking more about the children.
Hiya, Georgie.
In one of my Spooktober reviews, I talk about the Mortuary Collection movie, and my main gripe with that is that it felt like an adult Goosebumps, and the problem with that is Goosebumps wasn't geared towards adults. If older kids wanted to watch a horror anthology, Are You Afraid of the Dark was there. If adults wanted to watch a horror anthology, Creepshow and Tales from the Crypt was there. And I mean, I grew up with all of them. But the one I watched the most was definitely Are You Afraid of the Dark? And the better episodes were the ones that were a little bit darker, like The Tale of the Ghastly Grinner. And in 2019, instead of rebooting or remaking Are You Afraid of the Dark, someone had the idea to bring the series back to life. At first, I was a little worried because Nickelodeon was a completely different animal in the 90s than it is nowadays. But I enjoyed it. Obviously, a little nostalgia factored in, and jealousy. I wish there was a Midnight Society that I could have joined when I was a kid. Probably in high school, though. In elementary school and in middle school, I was very easily scared, to put it lightly, and also PG. Remember, I'm thinking of the children. The 2019 season was like a mini-series of just 3 episodes, and I liked the characters and everything, but I was a little bummed that they didn't follow the old formula of a bunch of different stories, and it was just like one story that was focused on their real lives. I was even more bummed out that it didn't get another season in 2020, and I was bummed again when the next season was announced and it had an all-new cast, and I wanted to see more of the kids from the miniseries. Did the new girl end up with her crush? Were the other kids able to tell just as good of a story as the new girl? Were they going to keep telling scary stories even though they came in contact with an actual monster? Would they dedicate their lives to fighting what lurks in the shadows and become the new Monster Squad?
Kick him in the nose! Kick him in the nose! He doesn't have nose! Do it! Do it! Wolfman's got nards!
By the way, that was one of my favorite childhood movies. When people think of the best werewolf transformation, I don't think of American Werewolf in London. I think of the werewolf in this movie. And it also had an awesome creature design for the creature from the Black Lagoon. Why we haven't had a version of this thing hit the cinema in recent years is beyond me. Could you imagine if we had a movie set in like the swamps of Florida, and we follow a family of like gator hunters wondering why all the alligators in the area are either half-eaten or just gone. And they're out hunting at night, shining flashlights in the black water, only to have this thing attack them? If I ever stop being lazy and start writing and finishing screenplays and novels, you can expect stories like that from me. I also had an idea for a Monster Squad sequel where they're either in high school or just out of high school and monsters start to pop up again. Anyways, sorry, I got a little sidetracked there. Let's watch the latest season of Are You Afraid of the Dark and see if it's geared more towards fans of the original or new fans, i.e. kids. So episode 1 kicks off with a kid stealing a spell book to perform some kind of protection spell because he is being chased by a ghost, but it's not like the Casper kind, and he gets distracted before he can finish the spell. Pfft, noob. And he gets taken. And then we finally get the signature dark intro that Are You Afraid of the Dark normally treats us, but it pales in comparison to the original. That's an objective opinion, by the way. You can watch them side by side and tell me which one is better. I'll wait for you to tell me that I'm right. The next morning, we are introduced to Luke, who is the friend of the missing kid, Connor. He gets to school and opens his locker, and boom! We get an homage to the Ghastly Grinner. And I swear I wrote that in my intro before watching this video. We get introduced to our characters: Connor, who is the leader of the Midnight Society and who is the missing kid. Luke is the skater best friend. Jay's the prankster, the comic book nerd. Hannah, the activist. Seth, her younger magician brother. And Gabby, the worker or bookworm. They do some digging to find out where Connor is, which leads them to the magic shop where he stole the book from. The shopkeeper helps them figure out that the Shadow Man is what is chasing after Connor. We then hear the tale of the Whispering Woods, which is our first real taste of the original formula of the show. So we are told that if you go into these special woods at night, the Shadow Man will follow you wherever you go. He only comes out at night, and he can't physically be in any kind of light. He creeps on you until you're so tired or filled with fear or something, and then he takes you. Kind of like a mix of Freddy Krueger and the monster in Lights Out.
Nothing's working.
What else could it be?
A trap.
No one knows how to break the curse, so they go into the woods where his spirit resides, or more specifically, the lighthouse in the woods. They go and investigate and find Connor's backpack, and while in the woods, the Shadow Man flexes some Blair Witch powers, and he makes the hours turn into minutes, so they have to book it out to make sure they get out of there before the sun sets. But did they? Back at Luke's place, he has some clap on, clap off lights, and the Shadow Man starts to play with them, and it kind of reminds me of The Conjuring.
Hey, wanna play hide and clap?
Wow, this is the first episode, and I'm seeing connections everywhere. Either I watched too much horror, or they weren't that original with this character and these scenes, or I'm just making a big deal out of nothing. So Luke's been cursed, and we end with a cliffhanger. Episode 2 starts off with a bad dream and a dirty dad joke. Maybe this will fly over some kids' heads like they did for me with shows like Ren and Stimpy and Rocko's Modern Life. I miss the 90s. They break into Connor's house to get his laptop and bring it to the next meeting. Even though they have photo and video proof of the Shadow Man, everyone believes it's a coincidence. Then Luke busts out with the big guns and says he saw the Shadow Man, and everyone else opens up too. I guess physical proof means nothing compared to a personal testimony. But they still convince themselves that they're all just dreams and they're all just imagining it, because technically they got out of the woods in time. But they then realize Twilight is a thing. They gather together to stay safe, but the Shadow Man busts in like nobody's business and crashes their party.
Oh, yeah!
They then have the epiphany that lights keep the Shadow Man away.
Do you think so?
And they figure out the next clue to break the curse. Episode 3 starts off with a failed seance and the kids awkwardly sneaking back into their respective homes before their parents find out that they slept somewhere else that night. Been there, done that. And we find out how the Shadow Man came into be, and they do a spell to help, and at first it seems like it does, but maybe not. Episode 4 treats us very well with some nice and creepy stuff, showing where exactly the Shadow Man brings these kids that he takes. And he's got a little pocket purgatory in the lighthouse, and we get some more dark and ghostly action.
This just got awesome.
And it ends on a pretty solid note. Episode 5 kicks off right where we left off, and another character gets taken. Oof, we're getting into some juicy territory here. And another character gets taken. This Shadow Man is not messing around. And it turns out that it was all just a dream.
Whippy!
I can't believe they did that. I got so excited that this was turning into a legit survival horror. Whatever. Our group of reluctant heroes search the magic shop for help since the book that summoned the Shadow Man was useless. As they prepare, the Shadow Man makes use of his human body and tattletales on the remaining kids, and it works out pretty well, but our heroes will not let such trickery stop them. As they prep, Seth, Hannah's little brother, gets initiated and becomes a member of the Midnight Society because it may be their last night on Earth, which is pretty much the golden excuse to get anything you want.
I wish to take all the prosthetic legs in the hospital and bind them together with the dried flesh of the dead into a webbed, massive creature.
Liam!
The plan falls apart, and one character gets the axe, and 3 more get taken. Luke is the last man standing, and he doesn't have a clue of what to do. The Shadow Man tells a tale that is kind of like the Freddy song, and it's actually pretty well written. Luke manages to get away and gets to the magic shop. He figures out how to break the curse, which has been pretty obvious, but these kids are, well, pretty stupid. Episode 6 starts off with giving more backstory on Connor and his struggles tackling the Shadow Man on his own. It's interesting that these kids rely on plugging in a lot of their defensive lights. I know they also have some battery-powered stuff, but did they not think more on alternative sources? Like road flares, gas fires, oil fires? Even a glow stick seems like a good idea. Luke takes forever to point out the obvious, and he gets to the lighthouse. He has some funny banter with his friends that are in the kind of purgatory. They spend some time spelling out things, which is so annoying to watch. I know this is a kid's show, but it's the same reason why I don't watch a whole lot of anime. I can't stand obvious things being spelt out to me like I'm too stupid to figure it out, or my memory is worth diddly. And it would be impossible for me to remember what happened in previous episodes. Luke and the gang figure out how to bust out of there, but the kids who have been there for too long disappear when they get into the light, which is pretty deep for this kind of a show. So Luke figures out they have to use the book to go back in time to save the Shadow Man's daughter from dying and turn the lighthouse back on. Huh. I guess I was wrong. I just thought they would have to get the key to turn the lighthouse back on, and that would stop the Shadow Man. The plan works, everything works out fine. Since it was time travel, the kids in the lighthouse never disappeared, and Luke finally kisses Hannah, and blah blah blah, show's over. So, what's the verdict here on this Conjuring, Lights Out, It, Nightmare on Elm Street story? It has some moments of serious horror. The Shadow Man really personified a relentless villain, and because of him, we have some genuine moments of bravery and self-sacrifice. Although the cast and the writing was for a younger audience, there were a few moments that made me laugh, and I could connect with some of their struggles and their decision-making. Some of the episodes picked up right where they left off, so instead of feeling like a new episode, it felt like there was only a commercial dividing them, which was nice. There were some predictable moments, like Luke and Hannah being unsure if the other likes them, and since Hannah was a in-your-face kind of go-getter activist, I knew she was going to be the one who asked Luke to the dance that they kept talking about during the show. However, Connor being taken in the woods was kind of bullcrap. When they find his backpack later on, it was filled with light-up glasses, light-up yo-yos, and like Christmas lights, and for some reason he was only using a single flashlight that night? With all that stuff, he could have made a suit of armor of just light. Yes, the Shadow Man has the power to kill batteries and knock things out of your hand, but those things would have bought him enough time to get to a safer location and wait till the next day. And then he could have clued his friends in on it all. They might not have believed him at first, but it would have opened the door for them to help him out. Unfortunately, the ending is the biggest disservice to the whole story. It was literally the best case scenario. Even the trouble that the kids got into before was done away because Luke set the time travel undo spell to 2 days before they originally left, which makes no sense. Wouldn't they have run into their alternate selves because they were still not in their own time period? Also, how did he pull that off? The spellbook is mostly word spells and not like recipe spells. Just say the right words and boom, you have a spell. It's not like the DeLorean where you literally punch in where or when you want to go. So all of their trials are pretty hollow because there ended up being zero consequences. So overall, I would say this show is more for kids than adults who were fans of the original show. It's enjoyable, don't get me wrong, but I wish they would go back to the original formula more than this whole mini-series formula. Thanks for watching. Stay spooky.